3 healthy vitamins that actually worsen nerve pain using vitamin B6 and B12. But I'm also going to add one critical piece to this puzzle, B1, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. But let's first start off with this vitamin B6. Why do we need B6? Vitamin B6 is one of those helper vitamins involved in a lot of chemical reactions, especially making neurotransmitters. Those are kind of like chemical messengers that work within the nervous system, like GABA, serotonin, dopamine. B6 is really crucial in nerve transmission, the ability to communicate through the nervous system. In order for B6 to work, it has to be converted through the liver to this active form called P5P. So the wrong type of B6 or the wrong dosage can create the same damage of something you're trying to heal. The biggest reason why B6 is toxic to people is how it accumulates in the body. If your liver is sluggish and you can't detoxify, okay, or you don't have enough bile, which is the thing that helps you digest fat, or you're low in glutathione, which is a very powerful, potent antioxidant, what happens is the B6 kind of floats around in your blood and it never gets converted to the active form. So then you go to the doctor and you check your B6 levels and they're like super high, or maybe sometimes they're even normal, yet you're very deficient in vitamin B6 because you didn't have this conversion and it just backs up into the blood. The unmetabolized B6 is creating the toxic feeling that you feel, which affects the nervous system. But I just want to also mention there's a couple other things that can block this conversion. If you have inflammation in the body, if you have blood sugar issues, if you have low magnesium, it won't make this conversion. Now let's talk about B12. B12 is involved in making the myelin sheath around the nerves. B12 is also involved in helping make your DNA. And unfortunately, most B12 supplements are in this synthetic form right here called cyanocobalamin. Cyanocobalamin contains a cyanide molecule, okay? But cyanide in itself, with the amounts that you would get from taking this, is so tiny, your liver can very easily detoxify it. So it's really not the cyanide that's creating the problem. The problem is it's useless unless it converts to this form right here, methylcobalamin. And I'm going to introduce this new thing to you. It's called methylation. You need methylation to convert this to this. And a lot of people have a genetic issue with methylation. And so this conversion doesn't really occur. And even if they don't have a genetic problem, if they have gut inflammation, low hydrochloric acid, they don't have enough microbes, they also will not make this conversion, thus creating the numbness, tingling, and burning in your nervous system. But B1 is really a nerve vitamin. It has everything to do with your nervous system. But also your nerves are going to suffer because B1 is intimately involved in the mitochondria, the energy factory, in the nervous system, as well as in the myelin sheath, that little coating around the nerve. So if you don't have B1, you're going to have a hard time making myelin, and the nerve just won't have the energy to work. So B1 is really important in giving the mitochondria energy. And if it doesn't have enough B1, then a lot of things back up in the system as far as energy. You have a lot of byproducts too. And one is something called advanced glycation end products. That would be some like protein that's connected to a sugar that clogs everything up. And you also might have a lot of lactic acid buildup and a lot of other toxic residues. People that are deficient in B1, a lot of times they're diabetic because of the blood sugar issue and what that does to the metabolism and depleting your B1. The deficiency of B1 really affects the longer nerves of the body, especially the ones that go into your feet and your toes. That's why you'll see a diabetic start having peripheral neuropathy. And what's happening is the nerves are dying at the end part of the nerves in the feet. And someone came along a while ago and realized that B1 is a water-soluble vitamin, and so is B6, B12. The problem is taking a water-soluble vitamin and having it penetrate through this fat myelin sheath, or even like penetrating into the brain. Water-soluble vitamins don't penetrate through that. Okay, so what they did is they created something synthetically called benfotiamine. And I've been recommending this for many, many years, and I've never seen anyone have any side effect from it. But benfotiamine is a synthetic version of B1, but in a fat-soluble form. And benfotiamine has the ability to penetrate through the myelin and fix neuropathy, but regular water-soluble B1 does not. And if you don't already know this, when you consume a lot of sugar or refined carbohydrates or starch, your requirement for B1 goes straight up and vertical. You need a lot of B1. And so this is just another plug to avoid those refined carbs and sugars, okay? Now, there's one more thing that people usually have a question on. It's called alpha-lipoic acid, because a lot of times people will take that when they have peripheral neuropathy. If you just take this by itself, it might make you feel a little bit better. It's a very powerful antioxidant. It helps to build other antioxidants as well. But alpha-lipoic acid also helps the mitochondria to work. And one of the really cool things it does is it helps improve insulin sensitivity. And because so many people have insulin resistance, it's one of the key nutrients that works really well with people with nerve damage. Now, I just have to mention, when you go to the doctor, right, and you're checking these vitamin levels and everything comes back normal, or even sometimes it comes back on the high side, realize there's a problem with conversion. Again, it's not what you take, it's what gets absorbed and converted and ends up in the cells. So to put everything in summary, number one, use the right form of B6. Don't use the synthetic version, use the P5P. And for B12, use the methylcobalamin, not the cyanocobalamin, okay? And for B1, take natural benfotiamine, number 2. I wouldn't go over 50 milligrams per day of B6, unless you're monitoring it closely with someone that knows what's going on. Now, number 3 is very important. Now, I did mention bile, just a little bit on bile, but bile is super important in this whole conversation. Bile is like the dish soap that breaks down the fat-soluble nutrients and carries out the toxins. And some of these unmetabolized vitamins can be toxins. And also, when you take benfotiamine, guess what? This is now fat-soluble. If you don't have enough bile because there's something going on with the liver, you're not going to absorb it. Number 4, consuming fermented foods, sauerkraut, fermented vegetables, kefir are all very important, especially since a lot of these gut microbes actually make B vitamins and the ones that you really need. Number 5, you want to make sure that you balance your insulin and it's not too high. High insulin creates insulin resistance, and that blocks the absorption of one of the most important cofactors involved in all of this, which is magnesium. People that have insulin issues are nearly always deficient in magnesium because of that, but not just blocking magnesium, but also other vitamins as well. This is why going on the healthy version of a low-carb ketogenic diet is essential for getting your nerves working correctly, and also to make sure this methylation thing works as well. Number 6, don't forget about the alpha-lipoic acid. It'll help reduce inflammation. It enhances the mitochondrial repair. And realize a lot of people don't necessarily have a vitamin deficiency. They have a vitamin processing problem, a little bit different, but now you know what that means. Because a lot of times it's not what you're missing, it's what you can't use.